You say at the beginning that there's really no way to be, um, but at the same time, when I am engaged in thoughts, I don't feel at ease at all. You know, I feel tense. I can have some emotions, and in a sense, it's why I'm training to recognize when I am engaged in a thought, to stop the thought and rest as awareness. So is it? I mean, and at this, I understand what you mean, because being engaged in thought doesn't mean anything about us. Of course, we are still awareness, but I much prefer not to be engaged in thoughts.
There is your once you've got a preference to that degree, then the peace is automatically disturbed. So and it's not actually disturbed, but the appearance will feel disturbing because you're engaging. One of the ways I sometimes like to describe it is like when you look at the clouds in the sky,
Mm.
and you want one of the clouds to be a certain way, you're just going to have a stressful afternoon staring at the sky, trying to make the clouds become something other than what they are. So while everything is at peace, the sky's at peace, the clouds are just moving, you've introduced something that's unreal, a need for the cloud to be a certain way. Your mind's introduced that, and it creates suffering. And we do this with everything, because everything was already as it is. Every cloud is already forming as it is, and it's carving up the sky. It's just not. It doesn't. It's pointless in a way. Another analogy that sometimes helps is when you go to. In fact, I wrote a short story about this, and it was called "The Old Man and the Bee." And it was an old man that spent all of his life cultivating the perfect garden, and all the effort that was required to trim the bushes, to have all the right flowers in the right locations. And he was very proud of his garden. But as he was getting older, he was becoming increasingly more exhausted with the management of this garden. And he used to get annoyed if any kids played in the garden, or any trees fell, be very, very frustrated. And then when he was getting very old, he could no longer manage his garden. He started to get very depressed because the weeds started to grow, and the shrubs that he liked were dying, and other ones were growing in their place. And then one day he noticed a bee that was just flying from flower to flower without any judgment about its beauty. It was just whether it didn't know what a weed was. A flower is a flower. And he realized that he could relax and let his garden be completely natural. And in this, he began to enjoy his garden in his latter years without doing anything to it, just leaving it to grow and just marveling at the spectacle of what's appearing. And in some way, our thought streams are like gardens. We try to cultivate some that we like, and other thoughts we don't want to have, and some parts we don't want to engage in, and some are our favorite spots where we want to spend lots of time. And all of that is a way to completely exhaust yourself in your daily life. Now, we do have to do some practical activities, right? But they're not as if I notice in my life, if I just carry out the practical activity I need to do, it's never that bad. Like, let's take doing taxes, right? If anyone does that, nobody likes to do it. But if you can make that into the most horrendous exercise that you avoid and fight and feel, or you just do it, right? As a few practical steps. And it's the same with what you're saying there. It's if you want, you don't like engaging in your thoughts, that is already a way to engage in thoughts. Not like engaging in thoughts is probably the best way to get yourself to engage in thoughts. Because when you don't care, then you don't really bother engaging in them in the same way. And if you do, you don't mind. It becomes it becomes less interesting. So the first thing is why don't you like engaging in thoughts? What is it that appears when you engage in thoughts that you don't like?
Mm. Well, I guess because it triggers emotions.
And what is it about emotions that you don't like?
Because I am not in the present moment. I am just thinking about the future or about the past, and often about things that
Well,
triggers negative emotions like
okay.
tension or anxiety or stress, etc.
Where I understand, where does the thought about the future, where does it appear?
Well,
In
it appears in my awareness.
right, which is where is that in the what I'm trying to say? I'll be more clear. The future thought is the present moment.
Yes.
The past thought is the present moment. So you can never not be present. There's this thing about that there's a training out there called mindfulness, which can be useful for your body mind, right? To become mindful. I'm sipping my tea. I'm walking slowly. It's got nothing to do with liberation. This is a physical, mental body practice to find calm. But it gets confused with awakening, and it's got nothing to do with that. When whatever is appearing, that is the present moment. Whether it's you're thinking about tomorrow, that is the present moment. There is nothing else other than the present moment.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
So what happens is that when you're like, I'm not saying this is exactly what's happened with you, but I see with sometimes in the mindfulness circles, someone they feel so contrived to be mindful that it's almost uncomfortable. And if they catch themselves thinking about the past, they say, "Oh, I wasn't present." Well, you was present. You was just present to a thought about the past. It's
Yeah.
just that some objects, thoughts being one of them, can be very engaging. So a thought about the past can be as engaging as an explosion that happens now, but both just happen now.
Mm.
Where a thought about the air conditioned controller doesn't really take up any energy, so I let it go. I assume I'm being present when I think about this. I'm very present because it's boring, right? But something from the past appears, or even or a negative thought about the past. Oh my God, I really messed up when I didn't sell that house or date that partner. When that appears, we assume we're no longer present, but you're just present to your own mind stream that is conjuring up an illusionary story about the past or the future. So you just relax with it. It doesn't really have any merit. It's just your mind bringing up a past or future now, but it's always you're only ever here now. There's nowhere else to be. How can you be not present? Describe how you can be not present.